What's up guys, my name is Ace, and with Season 1 of Modern Warfare, we have two brand new weapons added to the game. This is the Holger-26 as well as the RAM-7. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing all of the basic stats that you need to know about these guns, so it gives you a general indication of just how good they are, as well as a few tips as far as what sort of attachments you might want to be looking for when it comes to these weapons. Keep in mind, this is not a replacement for my gun guide series. I will be doing individual gun guides for each of these weapons. This is just sort of an initial impression and initial basic stats for these guns. And yes, in the background, you'll notice I am playing against bots. The reason for this is I'm actually on vacation. I'm on a plane right now on my way to Thailand as you guys are watching this video. Don't worry, I have been working extra hard over the past couple weeks to get videos scheduled, so you will still be getting videos while I'm in Thailand. But keep in mind, any sort of new information or news will not be covered for the next week. But I do have a couple gun guides and a bunch of other tip videos scheduled between now and a week from now when I get back. So without further ado, let's just hop into it, and let's start it off with the Holger-26. This LMG is unlocked on the 15th tier of the free battle pass, so you do not need to buy the premium battle pass to get this. And this is essentially the LMG version of the G36. And with this gun, we get a damage profile of 28-23. There are no body multipliers for this, so it's 28 damage up close, 23 at long ranges, which means it's going to be a 4 to 5 shot kill to the body. But we do get a headshot multiplier of 1.49, which means that headshots will always be helping you. If you just mix one headshot in with body shots, you can reduce the number of shots it takes to kill, which means you can get a pretty solid time to kill with headshots. As for a rate of fire, this is actually identical to the PKM at 759 rounds per minute, which means our statistical minimum time to kill is 237 milliseconds up close in the 4-shot kill range, and it will drop off to 316 milliseconds in the longer ranges, which, as you can see, our range is pretty solid. It's the same as the PKM as well, at about 40 meters. Now, just like the PKM as well, this thing's got a 100-round magazine, which is excellent, although it's got a much faster reload time than the PKM. The PKM takes almost 7 seconds to reload, whereas the Holger will reload in just 2.5 seconds, which is very, very fast considering the fact that you have a 100-round magazine. Now, the big downside with this gun is its aim down sight time. It's a little bit slower than the PKM at 450 milliseconds, and therefore I highly recommend that you use attachments to reduce your aim down sight time, especially if you want to be even somewhat mobile with this gun. But speaking of that mobility, our sprint out time is actually not LMG sprint out time. We get assault rifle level sprint out time at 267 milliseconds, which is great for an LMG. It doesn't really mean much when your aim down sight time is really slow unless you're just hip firing. But if you can use a bunch of attachments to reduce your aim down sight time, you can basically turn this thing into an assault rifle, which brings me to the next mention. You can essentially create a G36C just by putting the right attachments on this gun with the right barrel combination as well as the ammunition. You can turn it to a 30-round magazine, and this essentially just becomes an assault rifle. Now, when you do that, it doesn't look like your damage or your range changes at all. Of course, I will be getting into further detail with that in my gun guide, but just keep in mind, you can effectively turn this into an assault rifle. Now, I should also mention recoil. As you can see here, it kicks upwards and to the right. It's pretty predictable. It doesn't really bounce side to side much as it kicks upwards and to the right. And therefore, if you are going to be using attachments to mitigate that recoil at all, stick to the ones that help with recoil control rather than recoil stabilization. But that pretty much covers that. As for my initial thoughts on this LMG, I think it's definitely a pretty solid gun. But having said that, I do think the PKM is just objectively better because you can get a 3-shot kill with the PKM by just hitting shots to the upper torso, whereas with the Holger, you have to hit a headshot in order to get a 3-shot kill. As for the next gun, this is the RAM-7 assault rifle, which is unlocked at tier 31 of the free battle pass this season. And with this, we get the exact same damage profile as the M4A1 at 28, 23, 18, which means it's going to be a 4, 5, or 6 shot kill, unless you mix in headshots. Up close, we get a headshot multiplier of 1.5, which means that if you hit 2 headshots mixed in with body shots, you can reduce the number of shots it takes to kill in close range situations, just like with the M4A1. As for a rate of fire, this is actually a bit faster than the M4A1. It's the closest comparable gun, and this means our statistical minimum time to kill is actually better than the M4 at 204 milliseconds up close, and then it drops all the way off to 340 milliseconds at really long ranges. Speaking of ranges, as you can see here, our 4-shot kill range is about 28 to 29 meters, which is just barely less than the M4, and our 5-shot kill range will extend out to about 45 meters, which again is just a little bit worse than the M4. As for our aim down sight time, this is actually the best in the assault rifle category at 234 milliseconds, whereas our sprint out time is standard for assault rifles at 267 milliseconds. This just leaves us with one last important thing to look at, and this is recoil. And as you can see here, it is a little bit strange in the recoil department. It starts by kicking upwards and very slightly to the right, but then it starts going pretty hard to the left after that. This is a bit of a difficult recoil pattern to predict and get used to, but just like with the Holger, there's not that much side-to-side bounce, which is great because that's the recoil that you simply can't control and predict. Whereas this particular recoil pattern, once you master it, you do have a pretty accurate gun in your hands. So as a result, just looking at this gun statistically, keeping in mind I don't have a ton of playtime with it in public matches yet, it might actually be the best assault rifle or maybe even one of the best guns in the entire game in its current state. The only real downside I would say at this point is that recoil. It is a little bit difficult to get used to, but like I said, once you get used to that, this thing excels in pretty much every other category. I guess there is one last stat I forgot to mention. Its reload add time is 1.62 seconds, which is pretty slow for assault rifles. So I guess that's another slight downside with this gun, but that really doesn't affect its performance in individual gunfights. So yeah, that's pretty much going to cover it for these two guns. The Holger, I would say, is pretty average. It's not horrible, but it doesn't really stand out as being an incredible gun by any means. Whereas the RAM-7, it does kind of stand out as being an incredible gun. It is very, very solid, and it just might be the best all-around gun in the game. But with that, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about these two new guns? Have you unlocked them yet and had a chance to play with them, or are you still grinding through those battle pass tiers? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.